Hi, this is Gene Sapakoff, college sports editor and columnist of the Charleston Post and Courier. Welcome to Countdown to Kickoff at postandcourier.com, Rivalry Week edition. I'm here with David Cloninger, Post and Courier Gamecock beat writer, and Jon Blau, the Post and Courier's Clemson beat writer. And if you'd like to check out their incredibly cool newsletters with insights from on and off the field, go to postandcourier.com/Gamecocks now and postandcourier.com/The Tiger Take. Well, guys, it's finally here. We have number 8 ranked Clemson 10-1 playing host at Death Valley on Saturday at noon to the South Carolina Gamecocks 7-4 and coming off one of the great victories in school history, 63-38 over Tennessee. Jon, I'm going to start with you first. What's your evaluation of Clemson going into this game, and how are the Tigers playing?
Better than at Notre Dame, obviously, a couple of weeks ago where they got stomped. Defensively was the biggest improvement this past week against Miami. I mean, if you hold a team to under 100 yards in modern day football, 98, I think it was, that's pretty incredible no matter who the opponent is. 30 of those yards on the ground. So Clemson's defensive line was as stout as it's been. The linebacker core really seems to be coming into its own with Barrett Carter and Jeremiah Trotter, and now Trent Simpson back at that strong side role. And offensively, obviously, DJ Uiagalelei was struggling. Syracuse, Notre Dame, he seems to be trending in the right direction, and the offense does as well heading into this game. But obviously, you mentioned the big win that South Carolina had. That's interesting. It piqued everybody's interest, I think.
David, we can't talk about the Gamecocks without talking about that Tennessee game. I sat next to you as we watched in disbelief. Really 3 things about it. 1, the same offense had gone scoreless against Florida just the week before. 2, the point spread there was 22.5 at kickoff, and then the margin of victory. Those 3 things are separate things, all amazing. David, how does that Tennessee game play into this one at Clemson?
Well, it's crazy, Gene. I mean, obviously you can't go resting on the laurels of that going into this game. And that's exactly what Shane Beamer said yesterday. How do you deal with the fallout from the Tennessee game? And he said, by not talking about it. That game's in the past. He even told Justin King, the Gamecocks creative guy for Twitter, hey, it's great, but get all the Tennessee stuff out of your system. We're on to Clemson now, So, obviously that game shocked a lot of people. Certainly did me. And because where's that offense been all year? I mean, I realized it was never going to be that easy game to game, but just the way it looked, how different it looked, it was crazy. So that gives the Gamecocks a lot of confidence that they can at least go up there and show Clemson maybe something that they're not expecting, that they haven't seen. But that game by itself isn't going to mean anything. 1, because I'm sure Clemson's defensive coaches are watching that and saying, why didn't Tennessee rush Spencer Rattler more? And they're also thinking Clemson's defensive line nor its secondary is going to allow USC's quarterback to have that much room or to have their receivers camp out in space like they did against Tennessee. So great win, big win, confidence building win, but ultimately it will do nothing to determine the influence of this game this weekend.
Jon, looking at this matchup from the Clemson side, is there a team that the Gamecocks do you think the Clemson coaches of that was on the Tigers schedule this year? You could say, Wake Forest, Sam Hartman being a good quarterback, Rattler, at least coming off this game, looks like a tremendous quarterback, but with a defense that maybe could be exploited. What do you think about that Wake Forest, South Carolina comparison?
Yeah, I don't know what the coaches think, but I think that, that's pretty spot on. If you think about 6 touchdowns that Rattler just threw against Tennessee, it was 6 touchdowns that Sam Hartman had against Clemson's secondary back in the day when that secondary was really struggling. So Clemson's been vulnerable at times. It's not like it can't be done, but at the same time, Clemson's defense just seems so much better than it was that many weeks ago. I think the thing that's really interesting about South Carolina that the coaches have talked about is Jaheim Bell. Obviously, how do you match up with a guy who's a tight end but also runs the ball? It's a kind of a strange combination in today's college football, and how you kind of deal with that moving piece, I think, is something that they're very, very curious about, I guess.
David, I'm going to ask you the same thing from the South Carolina coach's perspective. Is there a team that the Gamecocks have played that might remind them of Clemson? I'm thinking it might be some sort of Arkansas, Georgia hybrid. There were a lot of questions of the Gamecock people yesterday at media opportunities on Tuesday in Columbia about KJ Jefferson and DJ Uiagalelei, the quarterbacks from Arkansas and Clemson. But that Clemson defense, I think their front seven is actually a smidge better than Georgia's. What do you think about that, David?
Well, the Arkansas comparison is definitely accurate. I mean, obviously, Clemson knows just for this game, if not every game, they're going to want to run the ball. Will Shipley carved up South Carolina's defense last year. South Carolina's rush defense is second worst in the SEC, and I believe number 110, if I'm not mistaken, in the country at stopping the run. So the game plan there seems pretty obvious, and it's the same thing that Arkansas wanted to do. They're a running team, which Clemson certainly can be when it decides it wants to be. And of course, they have great big physical quarterbacks who can also run. Perhaps KJ Jefferson at Arkansas maybe a little more I guess, given the green light to run rather than DJ. But the fact is that they're both big, strong, tall guys that they have to bring down. So Arkansas is a definite comparison for what USC has seen before. But I think defensively, South Carolina will try to approach this game plan like it did Kentucky. Kentucky had Chris Rodriguez, who has carved USC apart in the past games. They said, look, he's going to get his yards. Just don't let him score. They were able to do that, and they won that game in Lexington. So at least the mentality for that is not necessarily going to do this, going to do that, going to switch things around on defense to do it, but just saying, look, Will Shipley's getting the ball. They're going to run. Just don't let him cross the goal line. Yards are not points, and they have to do that and have to pull it off in order to have a chance on Saturday.
Welcome again to PostandCourier.com's countdown to kickoff. Rivalry week edition with David Cloninger, who covers the Gamecocks for the Post and Courier, and Jon Blau, who covers Clemson for the Post and Courier. John, let's talk about Clemson's postseason situation. They're number 8 in this week's college football playoff rankings. Do they still have a shot at the playoff? What kind of shot is that? And would it have any impact on how they approach this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think South Carolina beating Tennessee was a favor in 2 ways. I mean, obviously it knocks out Tennessee, which helped move Clemson up another spot from 9 to 8. But also makes the win look a little better if you beat South Carolina, because they have a better record and they have a nice win themselves. So you have to win this game. Obviously, if you're Clemson, you have to win every game from here on out. Obviously, this game and the ACC title game. And you need some help. I mean, TCU still has to lose. I don't think an undefeated Big 12 champion isn't getting into the CFP. And USC, the other one, Southern Cal, they're playing Notre Dame this weekend. And obviously, if they beat Notre Dame, a team that you lost to, that gives them a huge advantage, especially if they're a Pac-12 champion. So you still need a lot of other things to happen if you're Clemson, but you obviously have to